It is about the history and it's about principles. But, we can get into a situation where we get so obsessive with flag etiquette and stuff that it starts to me to look like some kind of a cultic ritual, like a religious ritual. And that's the point at which I say, okay, I'm not having anything to do with that. The left spits on the graves of great men and women who created our nation, but Trump is radiating with pride. He's radiating in pride in himself. He is marshaling in a great big birthday party. And of course, he's starting it on his own birthday. You might have a clue about that, don't you think? So the nation's birthday is going to begin with celebrations on his birthday. So she said this is the reason that she wrote her book, which is why she sent the thing to me to promote. Her book was Trump's Superpower. And that's when I looked at it. And I was like, wait a minute. Where's this person coming from? When Trump decided to put his face on a $250 bill, folks, he showed that he has absolutely nothing in common with the founders of this country. He's just another self-worshiping tyrant. And they pushed back against that. As a matter of fact, when they were talking about the first images that they were going to put on coined money, and again, paper currency was not even an issue for people like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. They had seen the damage of a fiat paper currency. Not worth a continental was an expression that was based in their recent history. They saw what happened with a debased paper currency. But when they were talking about what design shall we put on the coins that we meant, they said, let's not put anybody's face. Let's put something that represents liberty or something. We'll have some, mythical representation or something like that on it, because we don't want to honor a particular person. That looks too monarchical. And when you stop and think about why did Trump pick 250, right? Is it because of the 250 years or whatever? Or is it because that would be the most valuable currency out there in terms of paper currency? You see, we have denominations of $1, $2, $5, $10, $20, $50, and $100. At one point in time, we did have higher denomination bills. As a matter of fact, notes in circulation greater than $100 were printed in 1945, but they were officially withdrawn from circulation in 1969. There were, at one point in time, $500 bills, $1,000 bills, $5,000 bills, $10,000 bills, and there was even a $100,000 gold certificate that had, of all things, Woodrow Wilson's picture on it. That is now the 500, the 1,000, the 5,000, and the $10,000 bills are no longer printed, and they haven't been printed since 1945, but they are collector's items, and so their value is even higher than the face value of the currency. So, of course, you're not going to see those circulated. The bottom line is that Trump picked an amount, $250, because he is the most valuable of all the presidents, according to him. I mean, just take a look at what he did with that, the lineup of all the different pictures of all the presidents, and then he puts a picture of an auto pen or something for Biden. He's just trolling people. He's trolling you when he does a $250 bill as well. And he's worshiping himself. It's antithetical to everything this country was founded on. And that's why when I look at this, I'm not going to be celebrating the 4th of July with this stuff either, because it has turned into a celebration of Trump. Trump is America. And if you don't agree with Trump, according to these people, according to the GOP, according to MAGA, according to this author, if you don't honor Trump, you are not patriotic. That is such a dangerous anti-American idea. So she goes on, when you look at this, the $250 note has not been enacted because it is against the law, but they're working on changing the law and removing that so that a living person can be put on the currency. Why would we wait until somebody dies? Well, we might want to look at their life and review, and if we find something like a long relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, that might be something people would object to, putting his face on a dollar bill. I guess we should start calling these, call the 250s. Have you got any Epsteins, right? instead of any Franklins. Have you got an Epstein? Washington and Jefferson opposed the monarchical tradition of putting a leader's image on coins. The Mint Act of 1792 mandated that U.S. coins, and notice not paper but coins, would feature an impression that was emblematic of liberty rather than a president's portrait. Abraham Lincoln was the first president on a U.S. coin, and that only happened in 1909. And so you see the fact that the first American Republic, and we're about to hit the fourth version of it. You know, there was a first version that was there, and that was overthrown by Abraham Lincoln. And then FDR overthrew that and went further down that path. But in the interim, you had these people who had been part of the Grand Army of the Republic who were ushered in as the political leaders throughout the country. And they were the ones who were rushing through this stuff like Abraham Lincoln in 1909. They were the ones who pushed to get the Federal Reserve and the income tax. They also wanted to, they amended the Constitution to destroy the power of the states by changing senators from being appointed by the state, made them elected like the House of Representatives. It was supposed to be, the bilateral Congress was supposed to represent the two power sources of the people in the House of Representatives and the states in the Senate. But the Grand Army of the Republic hated the idea that there would be any power left in the states, so they did everything they could to get rid of that. Jefferson focused on things like equality and civic responsibility, that all men are created equal, not on his own personal glorification. And again, would just be unthinkable to any of the founders that a sitting president would create a tribute to himself like this. But of course, he's putting his picture on buildings in Washington like he's some kind of a Soviet leader. It's absolutely amazing. You want to have a military parade. Just look at everything the man does. It's just beyond belief. So the Great American State Fair is going to be on the National Mall. It's going to kick off on Trump's birthday. And again, the concert series has been canceled by the people who he wanted to participate in it. He didn't cancel it. They canceled him. And they're going to have the largest fireworks display in history. Of course, we got to have something excessive again. And then they're going to culminate all this stuff, I guess, in the White House UFC fight. Again, very much like Idiocracy. You know, we're going to have this professional wrestling type of thing that's going to be happening there, as well as some kind of an IndyCar race that's going to be going on in Washington, D.C. Whoop-de-doo. I will not be making the trip. So what is the legacy of all these different founders? It is kind of interesting to look at why the Federal Reserve picked these different people, what their relationship was. I've always thought that, you know, they picked Alexander Hamilton. It was not because he was the president, of course, but he was somebody who was pushing for a national bank. And so, you know, they put him on the $10 bill to honor that. And of course, Abraham Lincoln pushed the first income tax. He pushed paper currency for the first time. And so they want to honor him for doing that. They have to put Washington in. But then they go to Andrew Jackson, who one of his key points was to kill the Second National Bank that was there. It had already been killed once, came back, and he killed it, and they almost killed him for his trouble. But there was an assassination attempt on him. Kind of interesting. The gun misfired, and Andrew Jackson was old, but he was a tough soldier. He beat the guy pretty severely with his cane. And decades and decades later, they pulled this gun out and said, "Oh, I wonder why this thing did not fire. It was still loaded, just as they had picked it up. They pulled the trigger and it fired right away," which is kind of interesting. But yeah, they tried to kill Andrew Jackson, but he killed the bank at that point in time. So then I guess they put his picture on some paper currency to kind of take a victory lap. And then when you look at Grant and why he's on the $50 bill, Grant was the one pushing for a gold standard, and he wanted to have the currency backed by gold. And that created controversy because a lot of people wanted to have the bimetallic standard and silver. And so there was a lot of people who were agriculture interests who wanted to have silver. And William Jennings Bryan said, "You're not going to crucify this country on a cross of gold," to paraphrase him. And so that created a bit of a controversy around the money. So, of course, they put him there. They did not put FDR on. I think they did put him on one of these really big bills that are not in circulation. But FDR took us off the gold standard, and so did Richard Nixon in their own ways. But it's a big difference between sound money and fiat currency. Sound money is coinage. They were not creating something that was going to be backed by something. And when you stop and think about it, even if they were to back the money by gold, like Grant wanted to do, what you're looking at is basically just kind of an early form of derivatives. The same way we look at ETFs or tokenization or things like that. Why not have just the real thing in your possession? And of course, you can do that yourself. You can contact Tony Arterburn. You can go to davidknight.gold. That'll get you in touch with Tony Arterburn. You don't have to. I think the other aspect of the Trump 250 was really kind of a hat tip as to what he's going to do to the value of our money, because he figures it's going to be something that is going to be utilized quite a bit. People are saying that it is going to be utilized by drug dealers. That's one of the reasons that they gave for taking the larger denominations from $500 up, taking them out of circulation, because they're being used by organized crime and drug dealers. And people have said that about the $250 bill. But I think it won't be long before we have to use it for regular things if we start to see this kind of inflation happening. I think it'd be a fitting tribute to Trump for the inflation that he's kicked off, if we get into hyperinflation, to see that it's a common currency that is out there. So anyway, in 1816, Thomas Jefferson wrote to John Taylor. He said, "I sincerely believe that banking establishments are more dangerous than standing armies, and that the principles of spending money to be paid by posterity is called a debt, under the name of funding, is but swindling the future on a large scale." What would he say about $40 trillion in debt? Yes, it is swindling the future. And guess what? The future has arrived. You and I have been swindled with all this stuff. And there's no question about it. The common man. They created Common Core to dumb down our children. They created Common Pass to track and control us. Their Commons Project to make sure the commoners own nothing. And the communist future. They see the common man as simple, unsophisticated, ordinary. But each of us has worth and dignity, created in the image of God. That is what we have in common. That is what they want to take away. Their most powerful weapons are isolation, deception, intimidation. They desire to know everything about us while they hide everything from us. It's time to turn that around and expose what they want to hide. Please share the information and links you'll find at thedavidknightshow.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. If you can't support us financially, please keep us in your prayers. thedavidknightshow.com.